knowing about safety data sheets, train employees on a regular basis, provide proper protective equipment to prevent exposure to chemicals and reduce the risk as much as possible while working with hazardous chemicals. Employers must give hazard information to their employees. The HCS is intended to be in line with the provisions of the Globally Harmonized System of Classification and Labeling of Chemicals, or GHS. This worldwide system, developed in concert with the United Nations, is designed to provide a uniform classification and identification of chemicals, their potential hazards, thereby creating a safer workplace for all employees. The HCS establishes the same requirements as the GHS to ensure the hazards of all chemicals used in the U.S. workplaces are classified correctly. Uniform classification involves the identity and relevant data on the hazards of a chemical, a review of the data to be sure that the hazards, physical and health associated with the chemical are correct, and a determination if the chemical is classified as hazardous and, when appropriate, the degree of hazard. The importer or manufacturer is responsible for the determination and classification of chemical hazards. They are required to provide hazard information to affected employers and exposed employees. Testing the chemicals to determine degree of that hazard is not an HCS requirement. Classifications based solely on available scientific literature or other evidence concerning the hazards. Appendices A and B of the HCS should be read to help determine the classification of health and physical hazards. Chemical mixtures and their health hazards is based on procedures described in the appendices. Manufacturers or importers of chemical blends are responsible for the classification accuracy. They should not rely on the classifications of individual ingredients as received from the manufacturers or importers or from the safety data sheets. An employer does not have to classify chemicals. An employer can classify the chemical if they choose to do so and not rely on the manufacturer's or importer's data. The HCS affects all hazardous chemicals and incorporates a flow of information. Any company that uses hazardous chemicals is covered by the standard. This includes, but is not limited to, producers, manufacturers, importers, and users of hazardous chemicals, employers in facilities that have hazardous chemicals, and employees who use or risk exposure to hazardous chemicals. OSHA recognizes the inherent dangers of chemicals, especially improperly used chemicals and/or when employees are not knowledgeable. The HCS has been written to make sure employees have proper information on hazardous chemicals. The information is provided on chemical labels and on safety data sheets, formerly referred to as material safety data sheets. Labels provide important information about a chemical and its hazards.